government's priorities was on higher education and training, amounting to additional funding of 57 billion rand over the medium term. As a result, this is the fastest growing spending category, with an annual average growth of 13.7%. Accordingly, this government is proud to implement a major step forward towards our ultimate goal of guaranteeing access to higher education and training for all South Africans who qualify based on merit, not on class position. This follows former President Zuma's response to the Hare Commission of Inquiry into the Higher Education and Training, reaffirmed by President Ramaphosa. Government will phase in fee-free higher education and training to students from poor and working-class families. This means that all new first-year students with a family income below 350,000 rand per annum at universities and TVET colleges in the 2018 academic year will be funded for the full cost of study.
Now, that was one of the most anticipated announcements by our Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba during his budget speech on Wednesday. 57 billion rand of South Africa's 2018 budget will go toward fee-free higher education. So what does this mean for students across South Africa? Let's find out. With us, we have Higher Education Minister Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize. Good to have you, Minister. Thank you very much for being with us here on the program.
Good morning, Leanne. Good morning to listeners. You know, the articulation by the minister is amazing. Yes. He said it all. I don't want to spoil that one. But basically, as to what it means, it really means now a student who comes from a family which falls within that category of 350, as I'm talking to you now, has been registered. Of course, on condition the particular institution, a university or a TVET college, accepted the student. That's one area which we must always emphasize. Indeed. That there are aspects of academia which we won't compromise, like the closing dates of faculties, as that's the tradition in universities.
Yeah, and that is important to note because, I mean, you have to qualify in order to get into these universities or TVET colleges, and you know, this is not just because it's fee-free higher education, meaning anybody can go. The criteria to be accepted is still the same as it has been previously.
Yes, even the closing dates, which some people don't take seriously. We have said even TVET colleges, from now onwards, we will expect them to come out public and say to students, if you want to be in our college next year, these are closing dates. If you want to be in a particular TVET college, apply by March, apply by April. But of course, this has put a lot of pressure on all of us within the stakeholders. Just yesterday, I was with the student at the University of Cape Town, and I said, South Africans, they expect a high pass rate, employability, entrepreneurship, because there's no way in which government can put in so much resources in a sector and then still talk about unemployed graduates. And for TVET colleges, I'm going to one, the skills center at Indaleni outside Pietermaritzburg now. Again, it's about numbers of how many people are going to come through that center. What kind of skills have they got? Would they have written trade tests? And so that, you know, it's not about just being there. It's about fighting unemployment, and inclusion in the economy on a daily basis in bigger numbers.
Minister, we talk about this massive allocation, and it is. I mean, this is a lot of money we're dealing with. 57, I mean, there's even talk of 67 billion rand since last year, and then forward over the next 3 years. How do you ensure that this money is now spent correctly? Because unfortunately, South Africa does come from a background of corruption, and this is a very, very big problem that we have to deal with. How are you ensuring, being in charge of the department, that this money actually gets to these needy students, educates them, and then, of course, they are filtered out into the workforce?
Yeah, I agree with you fully that we have to come up with the transparent systems and ensure that even allocation to different entities of the department is done procedurally and appropriately. But, you know, sometimes the challenge is how the transferred money is utilized by our entities who, once they've got it, they have a certain degree of independence as to what happens, for instance, in a university if they've applied for an infrastructure grant. Sometimes you find that the infrastructure they wanted to build is not built because of disputes around procurement. So it's really all about systems, working closely with the Treasury so as to make sure that nothing goes wrong. The same applies to NSFAS. We've been working with them, asking them to get experts to assist them with systems of distributing money, connecting with individual institutions, connecting with individual students, because of also of what happened last year, where about 14 million was just allocated to a wrong person and with no clear understanding of what had gone wrong. So we really do believe that with a goodwill and a commitment from all our management, with the assistance of Treasury and monitoring and evaluation, we should be able to account on a regular basis and be transparent so that anyone who checks on our books is able to be convinced that the controls are tight.
Minister,
I mean, I want to give you one example.
Minister,
when I went to the...
I just need to ask you, sorry to interrupt you, Minister, we're just running out of time, but I think a very important aspect, if you don't mind, that we go to is this of a student, and I think there have been a lot of questions around it, so there's still a lot of issues to talk about when it comes to this fee-free higher education. Is a student entitled to study anything they want to? Will you be sort of prioritizing sectors that we are lacking the skills in? And more importantly, what happens if we lose these students, if they graduate and they leave the country? And will they be expected to perhaps work in the public sector as well for a few years? I mean, have these issues all been discussed as yet?
Well, when the policy was approved, Cabinet certainly made it clear that they expect the Department of Higher Education, in consultation with monitoring and evaluation, to come back with a document regarding conditionalities. There's a big issue. For instance, what happens to a student who fails? Does that student continue getting a grant, a bursary, or we keep a student in an institution, but that year, the repeated year, becoming a loan? So we are finalizing the specifics. Also, we've been asking students, saying, would they, issues of sustainability, how would they ensure that the NSFAS, this fund, it grows? We just don't take and disappear. And of course, you know, students are shocked. Some start saying, oh, but we're poor. We have what is called black tax. But we have been saying, look, we all have to be patriotic in ensuring that we do something for future students. So as soon as we have all the conditionalities approved by Cabinet, we are just going around consulting with the stakeholders. We'll be happy to come back and really share with the public. Please. And maybe you can use this period to find a portal where we can get ideas. I mean, already I've got a lot from economists in particular. They just talk sustainability, sustainability, sustainability.
Yeah, and that sustainability is a big thing because we don't actually know what happens after the 3-year period, because the allocation we're speaking about is for the next 3 years, this year, next year and the year after, and then the plan is open again. So, Minister, we're going to invite you back, and I know that there's so much more to talk about, but unfortunately I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your advice, what you know so far, and look, whichever way you look at it, it certainly is exciting times for students, and many more will be given that education that they desperately need. All right, let's thank the Higher Education Minister, Hlengiwe Mkhize, for talking to us here on that allocation, 57 billion rand to fee-free higher education. But as you can see, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that this runs off smoothly and what the criteria actually are. All right, let us take a break.